Hello and welcome to, I think, probably the first video on Act 2 The Reimagining Now. This is currently Chaos. Kazak is not with me for this video, but I just wanted to kind of explain the assembly line and how it works as pre-context to the stream that I'll be doing tomorrow. I don't think Kazak will be there, but he might be. We'll see. Anyways, for reference, an assembly line is just a series of steps taken in order to get a end product. And then let me just go move into a new layer since I have a better time explaining stuff visually. Okay, so for this first step, which I have called take CSV here, it's not really just that, but essentially it'll look for a file on the local hard drive. This, I believe, currently is a text file, which is set up in a kind of queer way of. So let me use the text tool. Basically, this kind of thing. And then it goes for every single property. This will be changed to essentially just like a file which is of type API dat. A silly format I made for the TCG card shop simulator, which is pretty much just something like essentially this kind of a thing, except all the braces would shut. This is so that we can iterate over everything. Anyways, these will be the separation token that says, hey, we're done reading this part, let's start with the next one, and so on. And this will house every single card within the game. I do this kind of stuff to ensure modability is possible for the most part. I'll probably also have a set of functions that lets me just like, for example, this way you don't need to rely on this massive file system that is error prone, so that you can just call a function that will essentially add the card to X dataset, and then it will read the card data and then just parse it into the data, which is probably how the base sets are gonna be made. But I'll probably have a modify essentially just like a modify data function, which you pass in the card's name and then the updated card data to change it, which will be ran before these are called. Well, probably a modify function, which then stores all the well, has all of the modify to run through and then change stuff. And then adding cards will be done after. That way you can modify base cards if you wanted. And the main reason why I'm using C# syntax is because we are rewriting this into C# rather than GD script so that this is easier to maintain. For me at least. I'm not sure if it'll be easier for Kazakh, but they do also know C#. I asked them beforehand about switching, so that should be fine on that front. And then that's just like pre-CSV. In the, well, no. In the take CSV, we're just reading the data folder, which is essentially just like that. Our cards. If you cannot tell, I'm not a cursor writer. And then there would also be you. I need to expand you down. Wasn't prepared for that one. Let's just like go away 1,000. Oh, okay. I guess I should have. Oh no, I put it 100, didn't I? 900 more, please. Thank you. And then within this code folder, we'd have a sigils, a traits, a specials. This is for things like the Ouroboros trait from the base game. Do note most of this is probably not going to be similar to the base game stuff, except for maybe like sigils. And then we'd have a cards. And then this will end up containing our API.files, which are again just this kind of setup. And then this will have one for each temple that's in the game or that's added to the game. Do note for adding temples, you will have to, I think it's called GD with some stuff. E.g., you'd have to make a whole set of new UIs, scenes, etc., and then the code behind those scenes and stuff in order to actually add those. The modability effect is just like all the sigils, cards, and stuff. Oh yeah, also all three of these will be having .cs files named after the sigil that's added in to the code. And then in fact I feel like there should probably be like a general that will be in each mod that essentially just does either the modified data or the add card data to the game. And then the art is self-explanatory. That's just by default, probably it's gonna be the name of card sigil, whatever ends up being in there. And then in the card data, you'd probably have the ability to actually set that portrait name so that it can be whatever. Just know these will contain the glorious PNG file because we do not like the JPEGs because these contain the stupid background layer, they don't allow transparency, and a bunch of other issues. Thus forth, we will not be allowing JPEGs and only PNGs. And maybe some other formats that end up being useful for modders, just there will never be JPEGs. And then I guess it should probably define the card data real quickly. Just so that there's something to describe that. Let me go pull up a screenshot of the old code, and then I'll just explain over that and show edits. Well, not really show them, but talk about the edits. Oh, also, all of the background music that's in this video should and will be by Give Heartbeats. If anything else is in there, that is not on me. This is not my playlist. This is someone else's that just compiles all the Give Heartbeats songs. So this is essentially the card data. This card GFX will be the texture of the card, which is, again, of a PNG file. The card name, this is the display name that will show on the card, not the actual card name, because internal names are used for adding that, well, defining stuff like the modified data names and stuff. And then a temple should be self-explanatory. This is basically the temple that it is part of. This is determined by the data that the card gets added to. For example, beast.api data will have the temple by default be beasts. It probably won't allow anything else because it's one file per temple. Because the game's going to be split into temple setups. For example, if you're on undead, you will only be able to use undead cards. The UI will be themed toward undead, and the lore will be themed around the undead. Though that doesn't mean elements of other areas aren't gonna come in. That just means that you're restricted to undead costs and stuff. I mean, there might be costs from other stuff, but that's probably more for mods to do rather than the game itself, because I'm kind of after a one temple rule of sorts. It's not common for many inscription things, but it makes sense in the context of what I'm going for, especially with the scope. And then the rarity is essentially just like common, rare, common terrain, rare terrain. I might throw in a few more. So here's the thing. So common, rare, common terrain, rare terrain, and then there's also a costless variant, which will probably like never be used. And then there's one per each temple, which I'm sure by this you can see where the inspiration for unique UI for each temple comes from. Also, these lovely backs are from George Orwell, 1984. This one was by me. I need to severely remaster that. These were by Redley Bits. I think I did the red variant myself based on theirs. And then these come from Goofmart. Really cool artists. You should go check them out. They do commissions too, by the way. There's also unique costs for each one. This will probably be reworked because each one has a unique cost at. There's also some activatable button variants. I think this is for common, this is for rare, this is for the terrain, but not 100% sure. And then this is the backing currently being used as slots as well. We'll probably change that out too. And then that's just some palette stuff for art. Oh, and also this is not all the temples. There's like 16 of them total. Mic's on, right? Yep. Okay, good. I was worried that was off for a second. Okay, so where were we? Right. The card desk is just like the flavor text of the card. Card lore is essentially just more flavor text. I think I might have this like tied to Leshy so that Leshy only can see card lores because he's the lore guy. The rest don't really care. And then this is the illustrator line, which I believe in current setup, it's on the bottom of the card, right under the tribes. This will probably be shifted around so that there's more space on the card, and then the panel has a little more info. And should be set up nicer. I just need to find someone to make a version of Marksman Italic. And then this is the cost system. This will more than likely be reworked because there are so many costs that this would not make the most sense to do. It'll probably end up being like a cost list kind of thing. Well, probably more a dictionary. And then that dictionary would contain the name and then the value. And then we just check that for how to interpret the UI and stuff. This will be for the health of the card, the power of the card, really self-explanatory. This will be for the sigils that are on the card. This is for the tribes that are currently on the card. They will be on the display, probably like under the name or between the name and the flavors, something like that. This will be for the card's traits. This will be for the secrets. And then this is for play sounds. They probably won't be too noticeable, but I was thinking of having every card have a unique-ish play sound. It's probably more so going to be based on the tribe, and this will probably not be on the card data input end itself. Only because I felt like cards should probably have a unique playing sound so that you can differentiate what temple, well, not temple, but what tribe they come from. For example, skeletals will probably be creaky, fleshy will probably be fleshy. The many animal tribes will probably have a sound representing each of their tribes. Tech will probably have dial-up sounds and stuff based on what it's part of, and so on. Oh yeah, and let me go pull up what cards currently look like. This will definitely be changed by the time we're actually in working on the game phase. Because I'm gonna start with redoing the card UIs. Because there are a lot of card UIs. And they should probably be unique per temple, like the original. Let me go find the image. It's buried in the dev channel. I should have probably put more stuff in the previews. Okay, there. copy image. And then we'll just put it here. So this is the current layout. Art will be in this part. And the cost will be here or somewhere else, depending on the card layout. The sigils will be here. These will be laid out dynamically based on the amount of sigils, which would align with the base game. And as I was saying, trites were down here, Illustrator was down here. I think on the redo, I'm gonna have the Illustrator take up this portion, and then tribes just in the text box that's always there. Thus forth, these can be a bit larger and more proportional to the setup. No, they probably don't need to be larger per se, but they can have more space, essentially. Although they should probably be a bit larger. That's only the Beast Common layout, which is what we had in the original. I think the idea was we're going to have all cards have this background, which would not make sense for Crypt's land and stuff. Not Crypt's land, but Grimoire's Crypt. Okay, next up, interpreting the data. That's kind of already been covered. That's just reading this, and then we're just gonna toss it into code, or at least get code related to it, and put that in. And then reading is pretty much what I just said too. I don't know why there's two separate phases, but that's just reading each item within. Actually, no, I know why that's separate. Because each of these would be in a mod subfolder that's exposed. And then each of these would have a data folder tied to a mod. Let's just do a throwback real quick, because I don't really know what to temp name this. So for example, mods would contain data megabeast or just data which is reserved for the base game. And then that would have data related to the mods and stuff. And then in the reading step, we'd go into that and then read everything and then go make everything based on that. And then create will actually essentially create the actual data, which I believe is currently in a ginormous class. Where is it? Cardhandler.gd. When I say create data, I mean it's just gonna, after reading all the data, make a bank entry, and then we're just gonna toss that into the Temple bank. Mind you, this is all card specific, not sigils or traits logic. Just the cards. Each of these has a separate process that I'll probably go over in a future video, because we're not going to be able to get all of that done in one stream or two, depending on if I do Sunday too. And then Objectify basically just takes this and then it will turn that into this. And then from that point in Scriptify, we're just taking that and then essentially just adding, let's just say, Airborne. It looks more like an RNE dot CS, and then that would just be added to the card so that we have the airborne logic, and then that will also contain the sigil entry data. Let me go pull up the example setup for the sigil. Mind you, this will definitely be changed when we recode this. But as a base point, for example, airborne is basically just this, in which we define a registry and then we give it a new sigil bank entry, and then we're defining the icon, loading the icon, and then this is where we define the bank. So this is the sigil's name, this is the sigil's description, this is the category it falls within. I'm not sure if this will actually be useful on the in-game front, but on the code front, yes. Also, I just realized, is that actually a misspelled meta? Holy shit, it is. I wonder how that one happened. This is basically just like things like the base game's choice, node, or act 1 rule book. Which I'm gonna erase that because that's gonna take up too much space. But that's essentially what that's for, just categories related to the sigil which will affect in-game events. And then this is where we give that sigil an icon, and then we're just gonna return that sigil from the register, which I believe what we're doing is essentially just having a registry function that gets all of the sigils and then just calls the specific register within that and runs it so that the data is added. This might end up getting shifted into the generics TS file, but no guarantees on that one, because it kind of makes a bit more sense to have it in here. And then that's basically the rough setup for these fellas. Traits and specials will end up being similar, just with their own structure for registries. And then the code is defined in this part. Mind you, that this test will not stay that way. And it'll probably be a function call, for example, on play. And then within that, we'd have our thing, for example, provide bone, comma, 1, or whatever, and then it would just end. There'd probably be a bit more code for visuals and stuff, but that's the rough gist of what this will be. And then now let me go find a image of the UI node system. Oh yeah, and also another thing to note, in the first one, we're also gonna rebuild the settings and the menu so that we have an actual display we can look at. Okay, so I found an old graphic This is heavily outdated, mind you, but I found an old graphic which has the card layout nodes. So to explain a node, this is basically the absolute parent at the top, and then this will be a child node, which then becomes the present node, which then becomes the parent to what is within that. So for example, these are the children of that, and then that has the children of this. Or in the case of the cost display, these. These are texture recs, these are no TDs. I think this is a boundary, if I recall. This is a text, I think. I think it's text. It might be a scale. Not scale, but integer thing. And this is what I was doing for the sigils, which is an A grid container. This will probably be different and probably not be based on a grid container. Or actually, it could be based on a grid container, just 3 sigils. Like, let's just do random icons here. That, and then waterborne. Like this would not be possible in a grid container because that requires box here, box here, box here, box here. Kind of like a Windows logo. And then that's just, again, integer icons. Well, more so integers. And I think that's just a text. I don't know why there's subtext within the text, but hey. That defines the Illis, and then this defines the old tribe thing that I had going on at the bottom of the card. Each of these were the tribes they'd be loaded in sequential order. And then this is what we had handling the collisions. Basically, if it's within this box and your mouse is on it, you can hover over it and select it and stuff. Also, as a more streamlined example, let me just define this a little bit better. Alright, let's say node current new node, and then children would be a list of node. And these two are safe to have it define a new node by default. Same with this one. This one I cannot, because that will cause an infinite recursion loop. Because if a parent is of a new node, then the child will always be a node, meaning that this just repeats for infinity. Some compilers have a catch for that, but a good chunk end up just rerunning this forever to the point where you need to hit Alt F4. But that is basically what a node is in general. Of course, usually most nodes will also have values like attack, probably not this for that. but like a name type, content, which would go along with that, but at its core, this is what a node is. And then with that, I think that's actually weirdly everything explained. I have no clue how long this video is going to be after editing, because I have to edit some screaming out of the video, because people love doing that right outside my door and stuff. But I think that should cover it. And sorry if the mic's a bit quiet. If it is, please let me know in the description, and I'll get that fixed by the time of the stream. And mind you, when I say put that in the description, I mean like the day this video is posted so that I see it by tomorrow. Which, mind you, I'm an EST. So tomorrow is in like 6 hours. I'd probably be streaming at like 6, 7 a.m. Please do not do that. I know what you alphas like to do. Please don't do that. I feel like that's gonna get clipped or some shit. But anyways, that's essentially what the gist of what we're gonna be working on is. Just essentially getting this to load, and then the UI, and then the settings, and the start screen. In fact, these two will probably be first on and off, while I might end up needing to wait for Kazakh responses so that I can verify how to code the thing. But if there's any Godot devs in the chat, it would be useful if you actually commented on the stuff that I need help with understanding, or like linking a doc I could read up on live, so that there's not a bunch of waiting time. And then this is the like main thing I'm working on. Of course, this is gonna be like all the way down this way because I'm probably gonna end up putting every card UI into this. Actually, it might be smarter to do sub-card UIs in the node fashion, so that I can just have like a instance per temple, which then has instances within itself, which then has the card details, and some other things are instances as well. For example, the sigils can just be their own instance too. That way, more modability and less janky code. Oh, and also, please remind me to actually like comment on code so that I can remember what things do, and I can make sure Kesek knows what they do too, and preferably in the XML fashion, e.g. the one that shows vars, what they do, the returns, and also just like summaries. And if there is, for whatever reason, a switch case which defines things, make sure I put a table in it. And I know it's really janky to do that in XML, but I have done it before, and it's actually kind of useful to have there. But yeah, that's the rough gist of what the assembly line is, how it works, and what will be happening tomorrow. Anyways, with that, I think I'll call this video here and then go jump into editing. Oh, right. Also, please join the Discord up in the top left corner. That will basically be where I'm housing all content related stuff. And then for game specific stuff, let me turn on the chat and then put that there. Make sure I hit the right key, that, and then... Alright, for that I need to go grab Caster. Because the thing's a little bit annoying, where the Caster Labs app has to be open for the multi-chat to happen, because Stream Elements does not natively have it. If that's ever a thing, please let me know, so that I can change that to Stream Elements, so that I don't have to have another app open. Because right now I need OBS, I need Vado. If I ever have a Vado Ninja set up, I'll have that. And then, on top of that, I also need Caster Labs because of the chats. And then if this will hurry up in loading... Also, I just realized the recording time is 53 minutes. Woohoo! That's a ton of editing for later. Yay, me. Oh yeah, also art for the silly little models by me. I'll probably post them on DeviantArt later. Which actually, please remind me to go upload a bunch of DeviantArt stuff later. Or just like during the stream. And or after. Because I'm behind on a lot of DeviantArt stuff. There's a lot of things I need to edit and put together and put on there. Anyways, that is now open, so that should work now. Yeah. Join that Discord. That will have everything Act 2, the reimagining, including the ideas, and the link to the GitHub. In fact, I'll probably have a new GitHub setup specifically called the game's name, rather than the old Inscryption rebaked name, because that doesn't really fly as well. And also, like, it's gonna end up making things confused with Inscryption, so I'd rather just call it Act 2, semicolon, the reimagining. Because that's essentially what it is, and it's an actual cool sounding name. Oh yeah, and also seriously, mad thanks to the great Kezek. He helped me with a lot of this on the code end, and also kind of convinced me to actually work on this in the first place. Because I shared the ideas with him back a while ago in the Axiom Archives Discord server about my ideas with the game, and then he offered to help with it, and also to help me like make it and stuff. Oh yeah, also I think he made, I think it's called Seta Industries on YouTube, and I think that's also an itch team they have. Let me just verify that real quick. Please do not type anything until I verify that. Here. Then here. Yeah. He is a member of Seta Industries and OKNO Games, which I think are both on itch. Though I believe Seta Industries was also on YouTube. They made a Minecraft trailer that's kind of like the meme version kind of thing. I don't remember what the exact specifics are. I just remember that mentioned a while ago in Axiom Archives. Oh, and speaking of Axiom Archives, please go check out their channel too. It's really cool. They have a great Slay the Spire series. Not Slay the Spire. Slay the Princess series, which I watched in full. It's so peak. In fact, I'm still gonna play Slay the Spire. Not Spire. I need to play that too. Slay the Princess. You can see how into card games I am by the fact that I keep referring to Slay the Princess as Slay the Spire. Which, fun fact, I have a second one. Oh, and also, if you haven't already, go follow my channel on Twitch, The Stoat Lord. There's also Chaosier's Vessel now, which is what the game dev streams were meant to be on. But Lush IRL kind of happened. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out. But essentially, this is going to be on both Stoat Lord and Chaosier's Vessel. Oh yeah, and this will also be on the YouTube channels. The Stoat Lord plus the archive, and the YouTube channel Chaosier, which currently I think has an intro and event video. Event video more so like a short that just explains things. Salia made it. Alright. Also, remind me to make a better vessel info video. Because that needs some updating. There's been a few new members. In fact, quite a few. Oh, yeah, also, I guess while we're in pretty much end credit phase, let me go pull up the glorious image that Salia made for the vessel. Which, mind you, they're probably gonna be lurking around in the back of the head during that stream. So beware. Copy image. And then we're just gonna put that there. This. Ignore that one. We have Briar, we have me. It's cute, but not really the same vibe as the model that I have currently. Myra's, we have Reflexy, Salia, and Critter. And then there's also just an info sheet for art stuff. So if you ever need that for any reason at all, just join the Discord in the top left or let me know. Discord tag is ThinCreator3483, by the way. Oh yeah, also Daniel Mullins approved me being able to take donations for the game too. So whenever this is out, I'll have a donation system set up. If it's ever on Steam, we'll see how we're gonna work on that, because I don't think they have a direct donation system, so I might have to like link a Patreon or whatever in the actual game for Steam edition. Probably something under settings or credits. But I think that's everything. I should probably edit this before I make myself have to edit more. Okay. Anyways, with that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace until like tomorrow.